This true scary story will surprise you and make you believe that sometimes paranormal stories may be true.
This seemingly harmless place is located in a quiet area of Hartworth City in Indiana. There, at 218 North Monroe Street, is a large old-fashioned white Victorian house. There are many historic buildings in this area, but the house on North Monroe Street attracts much more attention from tourists. The city of Hartworth City was founded in the late 19th century, and it quickly flowed streams of immigrants. The houses here grew by leaps and bounds, and our house was built around 1892. By whom, for some reason unknown. Very soon, stories began to spread around the neighborhood that the residents in this house do not stay long, because something dark and evil lives in the house. Some of the residents died unexpectedly, some suffered from sudden illnesses, and others began to pursue fatal misfortunes. The first occupants of this house were the Berger family immigrants from Belgium. The head of the family, John Berger, began working as an ordinary worker at a local glass factory, but quickly rose to the position of manager, and then became the owner of this factory, and one of the wealthiest and most respected citizens of Hartworth City. At some point, the Bergers decided to move out of their old home, and turned their attention to 218 North Monroe Street. And a couple of years after the move, the head of the family suddenly died, having caught tuberculosis somewhere, and fell ill with it in the most complex form. The widow Berger and her relatives then moved to live on the first floor, and rented the upper bedrooms to the Myers family. The head of the family, Ulysses Myers, was considered a calm and strong-willed person, but soon after moving to Monroe Street, his character and habits began to change dramatically. He began to have problems with thinking, had sharp mood swings, and now became accustomed to tantrums. There were rumors that Ulysses had gone mad, and everyone who saw him firsthand was convinced that this was not just a rumor. Ulysses Myers' condition rapidly deteriorated, and now he turned into a dangerous madman who began to attack his wife and children with fists and knives. It is not surprising that Ulysses lost his job and then ran away from home, taking all the money with him, and leaving his wife and children to rely on their own strength. What happened to him next is unknown. Some time after this, all the children of the Myers suddenly fell ill with some serious illness that confined them to their beds, and their fate after that was also lost in history. Someone claimed that all these children had died mysteriously. Then there was a serious fire in a barn adjacent to the house, and the fire spread to two neighboring houses. One person was killed in the fire. When the winter came and the cold started, there was an accident with John Berger's brother Marshall. His leg was stepped on by his horse during a snowstorm and severely injured, which, combined with frostbite, subsequently caused severe gangrene, and the leg had to be amputated. But Marshall did not suffer long after the operation, as he died soon after from pneumonia. Then misfortune befell George Berger, the son of John Berger, who was attacked by a gang of bandits who had a hatred for immigrants, and shot him with pistols. It was a miracle that George managed to survive. But the daughter of John Berger, Mary, was much less lucky. A few months later she died during childbirth. Because of all these strange illnesses and deaths, the neighbors have already started to say that there is a curse hanging over house 218. However, this did not prevent new residents from renting rooms in it. The fact is that the rent here was for obvious reasons much cheaper. In 1940, Sidney Faulkner and his wife moved into the upper floor rooms where the Myers children had died. But don't have time to go through, and weeks after they moved here, as Sidney was in a very strange car accident and died. Sidney's truck, according to eyewitnesses, was driving calmly along the road and suddenly, for no apparent reason, swerved sharply to the side and crashed into a bridge support. A long, heavy beam that had bounced off the support at the moment of impact had gone through the windscreen of Sidney's truck and him like a pin through a butterfly. According to the same eyewitnesses, Sidney's body was so heavily pressed into the parts of the car that his mortal remains were extracted from it with great difficulty. Even more mystifying is the fact that 10 years earlier, George Berger's wife was killed in an accident on the same stretch of road. Very little information has come to us about the subsequent occupants of the 2018 house on North Monroe Street. Most likely, the house or very few people moved in or did it illegally. We only know that in some years a family lived here with a child, and the child died during a small fire. By the 1990s, no one was living in this house, it was empty, and only local groups of occultists sometimes sneaked into it at night and performed some rituals. At the same time, numerous urban legends began to arise about the house at 218 North Monroe Street. As for the residents of neighboring houses, they knew for sure that all the troubles of House 218 come from a dark ghost living in it, whose eerie silhouette they themselves repeatedly saw in the windows of the house. They also saw strange black smoke coming from the windows of the house, as well as frightening sounds. Growls, voices, or screams. Neighbors called the police every time, but when they arrived, the patrol found the house empty and without signs of anyone living in it. On the web, you can find a story from a man who claimed that as a child, he lived at 218 North MONROE Street and saw a lot of strange things. I have lived there for at least 6 years and have always been afraid of strange sounds. They didn't come out often, but when they did, it was very scary. My mother comforted me, but she also saw in this house the silhouette of a strange woman who was standing next to my bed. I never liked this old house, and I was happy when we finally left it. This was in the 1950s. In 2014, a group of Ghostbusters came to the house on North MONROE Street, which was going to shoot a story here for TV. And when they were climbing in the basement, they encountered something very strange and frightening. So frightening that they no longer wanted to stay in this house. One of the group was scratched on the back by something, and when the researchers turned on the audio equipment in the basement, it allegedly recorded an incomprehensible voice that cursed and insulted the group members. Another participant named David Weatherly claimed that during his stay in the house, he noticed at least 2 shadowy figures, and the door to the room slammed in his face by itself. He and the other band members also clearly heard the voices of children in the rooms. In 2016, the team of the popular TV show Paranormal Lockdown, led by Nick Groff and Katrina Wildman, came to the house at 218 North MONROE Street. They actually locked themselves in this house for 72 hours, and during this time witnessed many incomprehensible events. But the most eerie thing was finding human bones in one of the basement corners. This was shocking for all the participants of the TV show, and they immediately called the police. However, information about whether these were actually human bones, and if so, who this person was, how he died, and how long his bones have been lying here, has not been publicly disclosed. Subscribe to my channel, and you will hear and see many more true horror stories.